This may well be Satan's most ingenious scheme for undermining the belief in the sufficiency of God's Word.
That sneaky devil Satan.
Turn them over to Satan.
Satan's been around. Satan's got a plan.
Modern Satanism.
Satan's been around. Satan's got a plan.
Modern Satanism.
Satan's.
Let's join it.
Satan's.
Let's join it.
Satan's.
Let's join it.
Satan's been around. Satan's got a plan.
Let's join it.
Satan is the greatest.
Satan's got a plan. Satan's got a plan.
Satan is the greatest.
It has Satanism and its motto.
A Satanist priest.
Let's join it.
Well, hello. Welcome to Modern Satanism. My name's Reap, and I am a priest with the Satanic Temple, and I will be your host for the duration of this podcast, which I am happy to say features a friend of mine named Shay Belay, and he just happens to also do a podcast called Deferred Gnosis, which I was honored to be a guest on a couple weeks ago, and I would encourage you to listen to it. It was a great conversation, and like I said, I was honored to hang out with him and Matt, and hopefully Matt will be my guest on the podcast soon enough. But I wanted to get each of the hosts independently and kind of get their stories or their ideas and just have a conversation one-on-one. And then I think we'll do probably all three of us at some point in the future as scheduling allows. But until that time, it's just Shay and I on this one. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and I would like to thank Shay. I'll thank him again at the end, but I'll thank him at the beginning too, just because he's such a great guy.
The views and opinions expressed on the program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the programs,
and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Satanic Temple.
Hello.
Who are you?
An angel.
What's your name?
Satan. Uh-oh. What's the matter?
Nothing.
So what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm sufficiently. I had an appointment with Dr. Daniels.
Nice.
And I am sufficiently inoculated.
Nice. So before we let's just start now, and you introduce people and tell them who you are, so they know.
Okay, that's fine.
Who are you?
I am Shay Belay. I do a podcast on Deferred Gnosis. I co-host with Matt Johnson. It's a free thought podcast, although we've been focusing on Satanism. Personally, I also write and publish poetry and music, currently working on an album, the theme of which delves... I do spoken word poetry, the theme of which kind of delves around the satanic ideal. Well, the current of Satanism runs through pretty much everything I do, but it's kind of about a satanic journey. The album itself is kind of about a satanic journey, but dealing with using Max from Where the Wild Things Are as a central satanic figure.
Nice.
Yeah, it's someone who I went down to Joshua Tree. I don't know if you're familiar out here.
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah. So I went out there and I had I'm not going to say I had a vision, because you will shut me down if I say that. But
no, there's nothing. I have visions sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that.
I saw Max walking in the desert, and like a Max suit, but covered in blood. And I decided to recreate that suit. I worked with a fashion designer that I know.
It's interesting.
And yeah, we burnt sigils into it, and I covered it in pig's blood. And
nice.
We did a photo shoot, and I decided the album itself was going to be about this journey of someone who finds himself on an island of monsters, and he finds out that these monsters are all aspects of himself.
Yeah,
and he leaves the world that he was disgusted with, and he finds himself in a realm of his own psyche.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
And as far as the vision things go, I mean, I have visions. I just call them intuition sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it just depends on what school of thought you're coming from.
Yeah. They pretty much they'll probably have the same effect. I mean, as long as you're not trying to apply them to to anything except for yourself, I guess. I mean, you're not trying to tell other people I had a vision that you were doing this or that. I mean,
but it changes people's lives sometimes, though. I mean,
you think so?
No, I mean,
a lot. I mean, it has a serious effect on a lot of people's lives.
Of course, it could be
peyote. Look at the visions, and even the Mormons. They do a quest thing to find out what's going on. There's all kinds of.
Are you talking about the service they have to do for 2 years?
Yes, but it's supposed to be a quest, Shay. It's ride your bicycle around until you're so freaking tired you hallucinate about shit.
Yeah, in other countries, hey, you get you get to learn a language for free though if you get sent out out of country.
Yeah. I don't know how well that goes over though. Is that really a good incentive? I wonder if that works.
I don't think that's an incentive alone. I think it's just necessary for them because a lot of them come. I don't know about your experience, but a lot of the Mormons I knew came out of pretty well-to-do families.
Oh yeah. Have you been to Utah?
I've never been to Utah.
Okay, you go to Salt Lake City.
I've got friends I actually have Mormon friends in Utah.
Yeah. Salt Lake City. I've been there a few times. In fact, I spent a summer right outside Salt Lake City at American Fork, and they come from money. And everyone who knows somebody high up in the church, it's an amazing hierarchy they have.
Oh, one thing I have to give to the Mormon Church is they've become economically viable in of themselves. Now, not to say that the Christian Church or any other sect of Christian or Catholic has not been able to do that. They do. But they have built an economic structure. I mean, they have social welfare. They have their own social welfare programs.
Yeah.
They take care of their own. So to say, I think to go back to that 2 year that they have to invest, I forgot what it's called, but I think that's kind of necessary if you want to stay in the money, if you want to stay in the family.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's very, what's that? You have to be loyal. You have to be loyal and very hesitant to betray that loyalty it was over threat, though, is what the impression I got. It was they were more threatened than proud of it, which is kind of disturbing. But
I think a lot of them are intimidated into
absolutely. And I think that, speaking of Mormonism, I think it's one of the most embarrassing religions besides Scientology because of its newness. And I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. It's so new, and we should have been past that kind of thought when it was formed. It's not the kind of thing you want to see popping up at that point of human evolution, I guess.
Oh, it's just Joseph Smith with the golden tablets.
Yeah, what the hell? You should have known better. We should know better by now. You know what I mean, Joseph?
There's a lot of ideas that's saying that this was a psychedelic experience that he had. Some are saying they've tied this into ancient alien theory.
Yeah. I'm going for the mental illness angle myself.
I don't know. The fact that their whole thing. Well, there's a couple of things that I take qualms with when it comes to the Mormon religion specifically. One is they've pulled from the Book of Mormon. There was a curse on one of the tribes that made their skin black. They use that to justify a bit of racism.
Yeah, a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah, and they say, well, because they believe that the apostles are still alive, or that they have their own apostles currently living. And they say, well, in the 70s, it suddenly came down from God that African Americans can enter the priesthood. Oh yeah, God waited until the 1970s to decide this?
Yeah, but it's not even God decided. It's just like all of a sudden we decided, and it's like there doesn't come down from anywhere. It's just all of a sudden changed.
Well, why is God late on it? Why is God... So God's addendum, or his agenda, when it comes to civil rights, is slower than the United States?
Yeah.
And we don't have the best bill. But we don't have the...
Well, he's drunk or something, so you got to give him a break. You got to cut on some slack there, Shay. Come on.
I think women still can't join the priesthood.
No, they can't.
They can only baptize dead people.
They're very limited, yes, and that's evident too. Hanging out with Mormons, and I wasn't actually hanging out with a bunch of Mormons. I was hanging out. Actually, it was during the late '80s, early '90s. So I was hanging out with the heavy metal crowd, and even then, it was evident that the Mormons had a strong influence over people, which is disturbing, greatly disturbing, because if you're a metalhead, you really should be into that shit.
Yeah, I think a lot of them have, a lot of them are going to go through youthful rebellion anyway. I think their family ties are so thick and so heavy.
Yeah, very strong.
That you can't escape that. That's one thing that you have to say, at least in the Caucasian demographic. I think Mormons are probably one of those few that have family ties that are kind of
They're
the bond
strong.
is stronger than those of color. Yeah.
Yeah, strong, but not necessarily more
Strong
healthy.
as.
Not necessarily more healthy, though.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, just because they're strong doesn't make them good for you. You know.
Because I know from my own experience, our family's completely disjointed. I don't know about yours, but I don't have I don't have a stream of cousins or uncles or aunts to really.
Yeah, nor do I. Yeah.
But I have a lot of friends, usually Latino or African American, and they have relationships with their cousins, uncles, aunts. It may just be my experience, but I always had the idea that middle class Caucasian are usually going to put their once the grandmother or something gets to a certain age they can't take, we're the first ones to put them in a home or something like that.
It's for the best, Grandma. It's for the best.
Yeah. So,
but I'm lonely, Grandma. It's for the best. Just accept it. But I miss my family. Grandma, really, shut up. It's for the best.
I can still cook my own meals.
Yeah, really, I get along fine. No, Grandma. We're really, take our word for it, okay? We're younger than you. We're literally busy, and we don't have time for this shit. Just go into the goddamn home and be happy.
That's like Monty Python. I'll get better.
Yeah. I love Monty Python. I think my favorite, though, is the knight who gets his arms and legs cut off and goes, "Where are you going? Come on."
Oh, that's classic.
That's classic shit. That and the dragon that turns out to be a rabbit.
Oh, the Vorpal bunny.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah. I probably watched that too many times, man.
I haven't seen that in a long time. I should watch it again.
That's the dorky side coming out.
That's some classic shit right there.
This is a Dungeons and Dragons kid, man. So
Yeah. Well, that makes you a nerd, but that's okay.
A lot of Satanists come from the role-playing community.
I used to play Magic. Does that count?
Magic the Gathering counts, dude.
Okay, all right, I'm in.
That's the collectible card game.
Back when it first started, I was into Magic. I love that game.
Wow.
Because of the strategy, man. The strategy is awesome. I mean, it's such a well designed game, and it's very rarely you come across a game that's that well designed and balanced.
What I liked about it is that all the freelance artists they brought to the table with Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
And all the fiction, all the fantasy fiction that came of it. Beautiful art, and it is heavy on strategy. I think it puts to shame like Pokemon or whatever they have going right now. But Magic still has a thick current. There's a lot of people that are still into that.
Yeah, I know. I got to pull my cards out one of these days and play a game.
Dude, we'll do it.
Yeah.
I have a few cards. I lost the majority of my cards, but I bought a couple of decks for my son.
I have a shitload from the 90s, early 90s.
Oh, wow. They're probably worth money, dude.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
So let's talk about Satanism a little bit. Why don't you can you give me a roundup of your Satanism and the way you came to it, kind of?
Yeah, sure. So my experience with Satanism, I guess I have to go back to kind of my upbringing. I grew up in I grew up in a haunted house. You're gonna get me on this too.
No, go ahead.
You're gonna strip me down on this one too. My mom was very mystical, so lights would turn on and off, and she would say she smells roses, and that there was a spirit that was doing this or that. And I grew up with a few experiences as a child, kind of spiritual experiences that got me early on into the occult. So when I was younger, around 11, 12, I started studying the occult. I got into Wicca, right? I got into I remember going to B. Dalton or the bookstore at the mall, picking up
Now, are you talking about the Wicca, like the Earth is our mother, kind of?
Yeah, the whole goddess thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. And that didn't work for me because, to be frank with you, I was an angry child. I was angry. I wasn't. I kind of dressed different.
Why were you angry? You think?
What's that?
What, do you know why you were angry? I mean, in retrospect, can you figure that out?
I guess it's a mix. I had a very rough childhood. Now, a lot of people have rough childhoods, so it happens.
Yeah.
It was pretty rough. I might have been angry because of that. I was already felt very different than everyone around me. My family was very weird, very different. And naturally that set me apart. And I went to school in rough neighborhoods, so I wasn't exactly accepted. So I had kids that were messing with me a lot. I was the I was the kid that was kind of picked on quite a bit, and we were kind of not a well-to-do family at all. So I came to I didn't have any sense of fashion or anything like that.
And you know what? Looking back, did any of us really?
That's true. We all dressed like shit. We didn't know what the fuck
we should all be ashamed, every single one of us.
So, I was a bit angry, and Wicca didn't work for me because this whole idea that if you use magic against someone, it comes back to you times 3.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was times 10 or something like that.
No, just times 3.
Oh, okay. Well, damn, okay.
Like
I was worried for nothing. Times 3 is nothing. Times 10, I was like, fuck that.
I can work with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can dodge a bullet 3 times, but 10, that's kind of pushing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I thought there's shitty people out there. I was aware that there are shitty people. There's people I didn't like. Dare I say there's people that I hated. And I thought, if I can't judge them in any way, basically you're telling me I can't judge people, or I've got to sit down and accept the situation I'm in. And this was a very rough period in my life. And I remember going to Borders, and I read the satanic rituals in that first page that says, on the altar of the devil, up is down, pleasure is pain. Kind of a powerful, and I thought, wow. So I read the Satanic Bible. I bought the Satanic Bible. I read it in one sitting, and I went, this is me. This is it's telling me, one, you define your own worth, you define your own value.
It empowers you, right?
Very empowering.
Yeah.
I almost say that Satanism saved me, because then it gave me, it got me caught up in valuing myself when I didn't have a family structure to do that.
Yeah, it's easy to see how it would work that way.
Sure. So it gave me an empowered standpoint, and I felt kind of devalued. I grew up in an abusive home, so I felt that this was the first time that someone is telling me that I'm worth something.
Yeah.
And it was powerful. So I went on from there. I started off as kind of not the staunch atheism, but I was leaning on the atheism bent. But my connection to the occult was always very heavy.
Yeah.
So recently, in the last year or so, I went back deeper into the occult. Kind of had a revival in that sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I consider myself I don't want to give myself labels, because spiritual, theistic, these things carry heavy.
They limit you, don't they? The labels.
Oh, especially in the community.
Yeah. Because, well, it's tough because people want you to identify as something you kind of want to, because you want people to understand where you're coming from, but then it's so difficult to, in one title, without being, a paragraph long, to make a label that fits and actually describes you. And people just have so many assumptions about everything these days. They just think they know everything, and they judge people based on the way they perceive things rather than how they think you might be perceiving things.
Yeah, it's too easy. And as Satanists,
they're lazy.
We are fiercely individual people.
Yeah.
And to say that you can fit in by calling yourself atheistic Satanist, spiritual Satanist, theistic Satanist, it's not that easy. And if it is that easy, if it's that easy to describe you with a single label that consists of 2 words, then you need...
It's a weak label. It's a weak position.
You got to look a little deeper, because we're usually a little more complex than that.
Yeah. Well, everyone's deeper than the labels. It's just, I wish people would take the time to consider that and to understand it better. But I think it's definitely an uphill battle from my experience, and not just in Satanism, but in atheism and in the paranormal and occult and in Wicca and every kind of belief system. Even the Christians, they don't. It's not easy for them to even identify and be able to be correctly understood. Any religion, any person, I guess you could be safe to say, it's very tough to do that, and people just make assumptions and lump you in. I mean, when people say Christian, a lot of times they're screwed in the wrong circles. Just like an atheist is screwed screwed in some circles.
You just have to look at your Facebook feed to see how much there is a current of anti-Christianity going on. It's reaching a mainstream level. Let's just say, to take that further, in our current culture, if you're religious in any way, there's kind of a cynical reaction to it. People are very cynical towards religious devotion.
Yeah.
Whether it's Christian or Satanic. I noticed from my time as a Satanist, some of the biggest flack that I actually got from was staunch atheist friends. Because the very mention of magic, it was like, and I think atheists, there's good reason that atheists can not get on the defensive, but get in a position where they're not going to allow any of this mystical stuff going on, and there have to be in constant defense because of the Christians and the Catholics and a lot of the things that's going on is constantly argumentative.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so they're hardened and they're already kind of cynical about it just because of the other shit they've gone through, right?
Yeah, for sure, exactly.
And it's really tough too when someone, the definition of the word God is so subjective.
Oh, of course.
And I think that's a huge problem that atheists kind of need to get over a little bit. From the ones that I communicate, and I don't know every atheist on the planet, obviously, but the ones that I've interacted with, a lot of them, that it's a hanging point for them that they don't seem to understand that God isn't necessarily, Yahweh. It's not exactly, it could be other things. Some people, like my dad, was more of a, I don't know, argumentatively a deist. I guess that could be debated, but kind of believed in nature. As God. And I don't have a problem with that. I can understand how he would come to that conclusion. And it kind of is. I mean, really, Yeah,
it's a powerful, it's a powerful notion. Have you heard of the scientific pantheism? The idea that, almost like Stephen Hawking or Carl Sagan's, or Michio Kaku's Mind of God. The idea that the natural processes are this powerful force, not to give it any supernatural, but that science or the discovery of science looking into these deep processes, that itself is God.
Yeah, just existence itself, kind of, right?
Yeah. So I think that's a powerful notion.
Yeah, and I think that's a very strong notion. I think that's probably, if there was one thing I had to pick that I would, not that I know that it's true or not, because I'm not that egotistical to claim I know anything for sure, but that I would lean towards understand. I mean, that's easier for me to understand, giving my perception of reality.
That could be using God as a label, almost like how Satan originally is a label, is an adversary.
Yeah.
It was something given to, you can call someone a Satan when they oppose you. It wasn't it became a character later on in biblical history. So maybe the term God can then become a label. God as in a poetic expression or a metaphorical expression of something that is grandiose in nature, whether it be science or something else. But those going back to the terms spiritual, theistic, or something like that, Satanist. I definitely shy away from that, especially since I know this is geared towards the community. I don't want to give myself an exact label. But my definition of, and it's good we discussed God, but my definition of God or the divine or whatever spirituality is pretty amorphous.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in literal existence of things. I get to the point where I don't know if there's a literal existence of anything.
Yeah.
You have things that can be studied, but I mean, outside of things that can be measured, it's all subjective. So things like forces, energies, entities, these are forces that can be experienced on a subjective level through the occult, but I would be very hard pressed to give any names or labels to them.
Yeah, and it's a personal thing, really. I mean, that kind of that depth of belief, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it gets to the point when, well, one, you can verify these things for yourself. You can have personal experiences, and we kind of talked about this on Deferred Gnosis.
Yeah.
You can have this subjective experience, but if you explain this to anyone else, they become anecdotes.
Yeah. As long as we all understand, as long as that's understood, it's good, because it's good to hear those stories, because they're good for people to hear other people's experiences and their perceptions. It's good to hear those things because, like I said earlier, so many people they judge others and they make judgments and decisions based on their own personal experience and never consider that other people have different experiences, and those are just as valid.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can't say one's more valid than the other. I mean, you can embrace one maybe stronger than the other because you can relate to it better, but you can't mark a person or consider them lesser just because of you trying to force your perceptions on them, to judge them. And it's just dangerous to do and harmful, and it's not progressive, and it's not going to...
It's irresponsible.
It is irresponsible, to say the least, yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of our that's where I think a lot of our problem is coming from. Now you see how I took I consider myself, I have these spiritual experiences or whatever that I draw inspiration from, but I wouldn't push that on anybody else because it's a subjective experience. Yeah. Now, if we can only apply that to the rest of religion in the world, then we would be in a better place.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of things facing the human species because we're unable to do that.
Yeah.
Everything happening in the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
Dangerous stuff.
Yeah, and technology is only going to complicate that too.
You would think we are one of the strangest. I think we're a strange species because you have places where you have cell phone towers and smartphones connected to the internet, but you don't have running water.
Yeah.
So we have this drive for the human race to reach this technological fulcrum. And we keep driving towards that regardless of what's happening in the world. And I'm kind of hopeful about that, but it's kind of funny. We have amazing technology. We can talk right now over the internet.
Yeah.
And we can record this and then share it with hundreds of people, thousands of people.
Hundreds of thousands of people, even millions of people, you know.
Instantly. And
hopefully.
Yeah, and we can all connect on some level, but yet we're beheading people.
Exactly.
So where are we going? Where are we going as a species? And we got to get over this shit.
Yeah, we have serious.
So here comes Satanism.
Satan! Satan!
Satan! Satan! Satan!
We have serious moral questions coming towards us too. I mean, when you can pick the eye color and the height of your children, and when you can tell if someone's lying by pointing a device at them, the way we aren't far away from these kind of technology, you know. And when you can affect people's brains with magnetic wands, you know, which has already been done.
Sure.
I mean, it's very creepy when you decide, you know, we're going to come to the point where we can cure diseases. What do we do with the population of the earth? Because we can't support all these people. You know,
I'm all for limitation, but that's a side. I'm all for limitation of the population. Limitation.
I don't think we have any choice, do we? I mean, realistically,
I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough thing for us. To embrace and actually make happen, but we're getting to the point where we won't have a choice.
But Americans want to supersize everything, including their families. So if you try to tell them, if you try to tell Americans that they can't have so many children, could you imagine?
Yeah, I know.
You're
infringing on my rights.
I know.
Well, you can have all those children if you want, but you can't feed them. You know, it's like you can't house them. You can't. It's just going to be tough, and that's.
I want my guns. I want my God, and I want my 15 children. But
and my 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mormons, we might have to talk to them about how many children they have.
Yeah, I know, because they go off the. Well, they really have no choice though. They've got to feel a little threatened. You know, they're like, we need numbers. We need numbers here, people. Come on, get out there. And the one thing we're going to say.
Well, we almost had a Mormon president.
Yeah.
So they're not as it's if they got. I mean, Mitt Romney got to the point of. I mean, they've gotten to the point of social acceptance where they can run for presidency.
Yeah.
So we almost had a Romney presidency.
I'm glad we dodged that bullet. With his help, though. With his help,
people,
yeah. So thank you, Mitt. We appreciate what you've done for the country.
But
he took one in the foot for the country. I guess that's safe to say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he took one in the foot.
I understood that he privately that they kind of knew that the campaign gonna get them there.
Yeah, but you know what? It's a foot, and it didn't do him any harm, probably. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the long run, he's going to be better off for it. So what the hell is he? You know.
Yeah.
Plus, it's not like he's paying for that shit himself. Well, even if he was, he wouldn't care. You know.
It's good to know that the Republican machine. I don't know. I think the Republican Party as a conservative Christian bastion is a dying party. I don't think it has much longer. I don't think it's going to work for much longer unless they massively change.
But man, they are so clinging on to that shit. It's amazing to me. It is amazing.
They still find ways to work it out.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to understand, before 1950, Republicans meant different than what it meant.
Oh, absolutely.
Now.
The Democrats used to be the religious party.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Democrats were the one fighting against, freedom from slavery.
Yeah.
Was the Republican idea.
Yeah, and I've talked about that on my other shows. It's amazing the way the polarity has changed. But the Democrats, I don't think ever took it to the depths that the Republicans have taken it now. And I don't know if it's their throes of death or if they're just stupid.
It's the transformation of. One, it's an identity issue, Anglo-Saxon identity issue, and it's the Christian identity, and it's the death of this identity, and it's in its death throes. And what happens is, and we could talk about this too, but just like where they say that in a state where there's the steady global warming is occurring, that you're going to see strong fluctuations of weather. You're going to see extreme patterns. It's the same thing with a religious movement or an identity. As it reaches its point, as it reaches its apex or its fulcrum, or as it's hitting its death throes, you're going to see major fluctuations in its behavior. So you see these extreme expressions of racial, almost racial hatred that are occurring within the right wing. But that's fucking dead. It's not going to last much longer. I mean, it's got to change or it's going to die.
Yeah.
Because people just don't buy into that shit.
No, well, most people don't, but there's still a strong majority that do. You know,
You think a strong majority still?
No, it's still a strong. Sorry, not a majority, but a strong. Well, I would say a strong segment of the United States, an area of the United States, still do. Let me say that way.
Yeah, you might be right. I mean,
We've got So I live in the Bay Area. You live down south of me, right? So we both live in major metropolitan areas. There's 9 million people around me. I'm not sure what the population is down there now, but more than that, right?
Ton.
Okay.
I mean, this is Los Angeles, Orange County.
Exactly. So between each one of our living areas where we live, and I mean, I'm talking about just even 20, 25 miles around or 25 minutes around each area, you have the population that overwhelms some states. You know what I mean? There's states that don't have the same population.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
You have those people that have the same voting power. You've got states that have less of a population than the whole Bay Area, but they've got more voting power and more power, and they're not educated the same. Their economy is not the same. Their culture is different. Where they're not taught the same way. They're taught more in a more religious based education. I mean, arguably, because obviously we're trying to keep God out of schools, but realistically, it's a culture that's based more around the church. And those people have as much voting power, as much say as anybody else does. And that's our problem. That's our hang-up. That's the problem that we have.
There's some things that I'm sure have bothered you quite a bit, Reap. I mean, you have I don't know if you've heard about the Board of Education in Texas, because the two main centers for how we assemble our textbooks, or what the textbook according to the curriculum is a major influence is California and Texas.
Yep. That's changing though. That's changing though now because of technology. But yeah, go ahead with your point.
And in Texas, what's sitting on the Board of Education, I don't know if you saw the documentary, I forget the name of it now, but they kind of went into showing the Board of Education there in Texas, and you have people openly wanting to teach creationism, making it mandatory and completely rewriting the curriculum in the history and science books.
It's an ongoing battle. I've had Eugenie Scott on my show a few times. Eugenie Scott is the National Director for Science of Education, I think, and she fights ongoing this battle. She does a great job.
Wow, yeah. And what happens is they end up, if Texas deems that you need to have creationism in your science books, then all these textbook companies then are majorly influenced by that.
That's because of the
populations.
Well, not only that, but because of the cost of printing, they couldn't afford to print. Texas and California were the people who made the outline for it, or the template for all the textbooks, and it's too expensive and too troublesome to get these textbooks printed out any other way. That's why technology is going to save us. It's a lot easier to change the textbooks now and have them printed accordingly to what each state wants. So hopefully that's going to have an effect on the textbooks. But you're right. I mean, Texas was deciding for the majority of the country what was going to be taught to your children.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're getting leftist California ideology, which is pro-evolution, pro-historical, especially in terms of people of color, kind of drawing on our history in that regard. And then you have Texas, which is exactly opposite, which is avoiding any racially sensitive historical facts about the United States.
Yeah, Christopher Columbus, great guy.
Great, awesome.
Yeah, great guy. Thanks, Christopher. You did a great job, really.
And we're sitting at a table with Native Americans because that's what Thanksgiving's about, because we're sharing food with each other. Yeah. No, we were killing and raping them.
Never mind all the sexually transmitted diseases and other diseases that we gave everybody up and down the frickin' coast, not just here in North America, but down the coast. Never mind all that shit. That doesn't matter.
No, because there was people here. This was an empty land. This wasn't the promised land, empty land that we just came and there's empty fields for us to colonize.
They should have named those ships chlamydia, gonorrhea,
Tuberculosis. Yeah.
Tuberculosis. Yeah, exactly. They should have named them. I mean, accordingly.
They
could have had a fourth one. You're dead now. Thanks a lot.
No, they cleaned it out. They cleaned out the United States and its native populations, and they pushed them into reservations.
And not just the United States. I mean,
you're right. All over
down it is amazing the number of people they stole from and gave diseases to, and it wiped out whole cultures. I mean, generations, and it's just amazing. And don't even get me started on the Aztecs, because those guys, man, they got a bum deal.
Oh, from the Spaniards.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Talk about destructive.
Yeah, Quetzalcoatl. The return of Quetzalcoatl. Yeah, they.
And then and then you're talking about the Native Americans. Look what we did to them. And what's cracked me up is the response to the monument the Satanic Temple was putting up in Oklahoma. The number of people who said that they thought that if anybody should have some say, it should be the Native Americans. They should have some say because they are the history of Oklahoma. And if anyone with if you can Google, look up the traditional history, the history that we have of dealing with Native Americans in Oklahoma. If anything, they should be running away from that shit. They should be so ashamed of that. It's amazing. I mean, anybody heard of the Trail of Tears? Trail of Tears? I mean, they should be ashamed and say, and I would love for a Native American group to rise up and say, you know what? We do want to put something up that shows our history with you because you guys fucking suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that coming out? Was that coming in response to the Baphomet?
That was it was in response to a satanic monument being put up, and I had one podcast where we had the Satanic Temple asked for all the information, Freedom of Information Act, I guess what it is, or they had to share everything they had on it. So we got a bunch of
they got all their nasty emails,
and a shitload of messages, phone messages. So I had a copy. I have one podcast that's dedicated just to those being read, and the recordings are included too.
I remember that. I do recall.
And it was amazing. The people that we should give these Native Americans, if anybody, these Satanists, they shouldn't have any right here. They don't have, and most of the people couldn't even say Satanism, And
it's a buzzword. Yeah, they couldn't touch it.
Yeah, they stuttered over it a lot. And just to suggest that the Native Americans are some of their noble history, the way they've treated them, it was amazing to me, because we've been disgusting to them. And I'm glad they're making they got these casinos now. More power to them.
Oh yeah, tax free, go for it.
Yeah, shit, man. Make some fucking money because holy shit, they've got a tendency towards alcoholism, a genetic tendency towards alcoholism. And I'm not saying Indians are alcoholics. What I'm saying is there's a high volume or a high percentage of Indians that are genetically inclined to become alcoholics. I mean, this is the way it is, and. To not help,
right? Like genetically disposed.
That's what I understand. It's the best of my knowledge. Is what I understand from what I've seen.
Okay.
But there's a high percentage of alcoholism in Native Americans, and maybe that's because they're pissed off. I don't know. Maybe it's because they're pissed off. But
I'm gonna guess a multitude of reasons.
Yeah. But you know what? Who can blame them with all the shit that's been done to them? But to not help those people and to not do anything, just put them on reservations and screw that. Really, and who are we really? Who do we think we are? I mean, we destroyed whole tribes of people.
Sure.
And we should be
brutally
embarrassed.
Massacred, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're still encroaching on their land. I mean,
we totally are because if it makes money, and right now they're finding places where they can get oil because of technology. They can get oil on their land. And screw you again. Sorry.
Pulling up mineral deposits, mining of all kinds.
Exactly.
I mean, they're still encroaching on their lands.
Yeah.
The little bit of lands that they have, that's still going on. Yeah. So there is this kind of ignorance and almost like blatant, I don't want to say hatred,
greed,
but blatant disregard.
Greed and disregard, yeah.
Towards the native peoples.
Two traits that really disgust me about you.
So it's manifest destiny. It's still an application.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know. We're not going to start it on that subject because the wealth we have in this country and the amount of people who are suffering still and will go without is amazing to me.
Oh, this is true. We're in a state where we are agents and victim. To quote Peter Joseph, we are agents and victim of decline. Yeah. So we manifest and we take part in, yet we oppose and are victims of engineering this culture that is destroying us.
Yeah, so, how much money do you need?
No matter what you touch, anything you buy anything you buy is paying money into. Almost everything you buy is paying money into brutal labor practices.
Yeah. Hey, let's boycott BP. Okay, you want to boycott BP? You have to boycott
drive
plastic bottles, driving your car, using anything, almost anything with plastic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just like fair trade coffee. You know, if you touch chocolate or coffee, this is going into these brutal farming practices that are overseas that are just disgusting. If you had to look at it while you're trying to enjoy your coffee or your chocolate or whatever else you were doing, you wouldn't be able to handle it.
You should spit it out. Yeah,
you would spit it out. You wouldn't even be able to handle it. It's why I don't know. I don't think you're a vegetarian, but it's why. Vegetarians or vegans when they are talking about anything, you have someone who says, "Well, I don't." You have carnivores or omnivores. They don't want to. They'll say, "I don't want to see it. I don't want to know what's going on in the factory."
Bury your head.
And if you're not a vegetarian, I don't want to. I'm not putting you out there in any way, but I feel like it's a similar. I don't want to see it. I don't want to know what's going on. And I think we do that as a people. We do that with everything we're doing.
Yeah.
Not just our diet, but we do that with every single product we're purchasing.
Yeah.
We don't want to know where it's coming from.
Yeah. Well, we do that when we walk down the street. We don't want to know that homeless guy is hurt or needs help. You know?
Oh, you'd rather ignore him.
Yeah. You just look the other way. And I went out and we stood with the sign saying, "Need help, atheists need help," and Christian needing help, and people, just the amount of people that just totally ignored us was amazing. Just totally ignored us.
Wait, did you get better? Who went out there? You went out there with...
I went out there with my former co-host, and she went out there, and she stood for a while. We stood through about 300 cars. Right? Yeah, about 300 cars, just to see what would happen. And I actually got a better response with the atheist sign.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I got a care package offered to me, which I didn't take because I didn't need the care package. But it was more of a social study than anything else, you know. But watching the people, and I did get told that Jesus loved me through a partially open car window when I was an atheist, and I did get $1 from one lady. And as a Christian needing something, I got nothing. And and she got $1. She got $1. So it was just, but it was amazing that so we're at an exit, right, to have a shopping center, and it was amazing that people wouldn't even check the traffic that was my direction and would pull out because they would have to look at me.
Oh yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah.
It was like, well, I mean, did it make you feel better that you got more support as an atheist than a Christian?
I don't know. I'm not. The support was so. I think it could have been by chance more than anything else. Of course, the scientific experiment. Well, we're going to study this more, and I'll be writing it up later. So, but it's an ongoing experiment. But I think it's probably by chance, and I'd be interested to see how it turns out in the future because it's definitely not something we've let go. It's an ongoing study. So.
Okay.
But it was really, really, it was depressing. And it was right before the holidays.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
Hey, Reep, you mind if I use the restroom really quick?
No, you can't use the restroom. We got to do this straight through. So, you mentioned deferred gnosis. I think I've heard of that podcast before.
Oh, of course. We had you on last episode.
Yes, I was on the last. And I want to thank you, too. You guys were gracious.
It was a great interview, man.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of feedback from the interview. So anybody who hasn't heard that interview, you need to look up deferred gnosis and listen to the latest podcast, not only because I'm on it, but because it was a great podcast. It was really good.
Yeah, thanks. There was deferredgnosis.com. Go and check it out. We got 3 episodes under our belt, so we're still kind of a new podcast.
Newbies, yeah. You guys pulled it off. You guys are a class act. So
thanks a lot, man.
Yeah. So how did you get to? What made you decide to do a podcast?
Well, I had actually said I have a good friend, my friend Matt Johnson. He's the co-host on the show. We had actually talked about doing a podcast over the years because one of the cores of our friendship is we'd be able to talk about these things, very deep kind of intellectual concepts, atheism, the idea of magic, our kind of difference in opinion. We would get into these conversations for hours on end, and then we got an idea. Hey, let's do a podcast. We should probably, people would probably benefit from some of these conversations we're having, but we never got around to it. And I did last year. I did a spoken word piece called "Bowling for Baphomet," and I recorded that and I sent it to Lucien Greaves.
I know him.
And yeah, and it was a poem that I wrote, and it was kind of a celebration of the monument and everything. And I don't know if it was because of that, but a few months later, he says, "Hey, we're starting a podcast thing. Do you have any interest in doing that?" And I was like, I actually do. I
Nice.
have a friend of mine, and that's how it got started. We got together and we thought the Satanic Temple is a kind of a great thing that's going on right now, and it would be nice to use that as a springboard to get our project started.
I think it's gone over well. You guys have done a great job so far.
Thank you so much. I just wish we could pump out episodes faster, but we spend so much time kind of making sure we get in the studio and we kind of we're sticklers for getting quality.
Nothing wrong with that, yeah. That's why I'm able to get them out fast, because my quality might suck sometimes, but I just do it.
Yeah, no, and you push out episodes constantly, so.
I've been doing it for a long time though, so.
Yeah, so we started off this whole thing with the idea that we're going to be two personalities. One is a staunch secular atheist. One is a Satanist with belief in with a kind of spiritual Satanist. And we thought people listening, so say you have a Christian that's listening to the show, they might identify with the spiritual person, but then find out he's a Satanist, so they'll be at ends. Or they might find themselves identifying with the atheist, and then they'll be fucked either way.
Nice.
Like, no matter which direction they win.
You bait them. So, how long is it going to take you to bring Matt over to the dark side?
I think, he's been into black metal. He's played in black metal bands.
Yeah.
He's been around Satanists. I
think he is a Satanist. He just won't admit it.
I think he has a lot of satanic views. I just don't think he's keen to the imagery. I just don't think it really works for him.
Yeah. If it doesn't work for somebody, that's good. I'll give him a hard time when he's on the show, because I'm gonna have him on too. In case anybody's wondering.
People thought he was a Satanist, though.
Yeah, well,
listening to the second episode, there was a guy on the Satanic Temple on the Facebook. He's like, guy number 2 just wouldn't stop pushing his version of Satanism. And I'm thinking, well, I don't think he was talking about me, because I use process of elimination, and I think they thought Matt was a Satanist because how passionately he was presenting his ideas.
Yeah. It could be. It's like I say, people pushing their perceptions on others again. Mm-hmm. Shame on them. So, LaVeyan Satanism versus the Satanic Temple.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
You want... did you see that recent article that Lucid Dawn wrote about in defense of secular Satanism?
Oh, yeah. I read it, but quickly, so...
Yeah, I think that was I know that was in response to our recent episode talking about it. Well, this is what I've come to feel about the Satanic Temple's Satanism. It's an evolution, it's a chain, it's a new version of Satanism based on some ideas presented by LaVey, but it's more progressive, and it's secular because it disavows the magical aspects of the Satanic Bible and Anton LaVey.
Yeah. But it does that without telling people they can't believe in the supernatural aspects. It's just something that's not included in the Satanic Temples.
And that's something I thought that I would... There was someone that commented on the post, and they wrote this long dissertation kind of about saying that because they were listening to our show that we did, and they were listening to you, and they said, I don't have anything against Reap or the Satanic Temple, but I feel like they're saying that if you practice any kind of magic, if you practice any of this sort of thing, then you're not allowed membership into the Satanic Temple, or you're going to be excluded.
It's not true.
And I responded, I said, well, I don't think that's true, so long as you accept that what you're doing is a subjective truth.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't push it on others.
I can put it better myself, yeah.
And I said that I would bring that up, because he also said this, though. He said, well, he brought that point up, but then he also said, well, should we also, if you accept that I can believe in these things and still be a part of the Satanic Temple, what about the Satanic Bible? Why are we completely pushing that out of the picture? And I don't think that's so much the case either.
I don't think that's fair to say.
I don't think we're pushing out I don't think the Satanic Temple pushes out the Satanic Bible.
No, I think Anton LaVey deserves respect. I think he deserves respect for what he's done for Satanism, and his version of Satanism, I think, deserves some respect too, and I have respect for it.
He was a ballsy guy.
Yeah, and it's not something that just anyone would do. I mean, it was a huge and challenging and dangerous undertaking, and he had some great views, and his philosophy. You can't find fault with everything, but we have to evolve. We have to change, and that's what I've always said: is any religion or any viewpoint that chains itself to a book and doesn't evolve and change as we start to understand the world is doomed to failure or unfairness, and it's not going to be right. It's not going to do us well.
I think this Bible left room. It is a book. It is confined to words. It is confined to that time.
Yeah.
But I think it did leave room for evolution.
I think it does, but I think the way people embrace it is not doing justice to it.
It's almost orthodox, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of LaVeyan Satanists who are more progressive that don't want to, if someone bothers you out in public, destroy them. I don't think people really lived by that.
They obviously don't, or we'd see a lot more of that going on.
Yeah, I think Satanists are reasonable just like anyone else, and if you have friends that make a mistake, I'm not going to, someone comes over my home, my lair, as it's, I'm not going to, if they accidentally make a mistake and they're disrespectful in some way, I'm going to give them some room to forgive themselves, or I'm going to give them some room
behavior.
to understand
give them an
where they're coming
opportunity.
from. I'm not going to try to destroy them because they've
give
wronged
someone an
me.
Opportunity. My philosophy has been you always give someone an opportunity, and you voice your opinion on it and why you have a problem with it and make it clear. And if it's not tolerable, then you tell them why. You give them reasons. You don't say just because. And if the person chooses after that to still be disrespectful or harmful, then they kind of deserve what they're getting. But you always give them an opportunity to check themselves and the reasons why you think they should and why, support what you're saying.
Because they may not know.
They may not know because you know what? That's another thing. We come all the way back to this. People's perceptions are forcing them on others. And you got to. Not everyone's raised like you. Not everyone's had the same life experiences you have, and you've got to keep that in mind. And some people
they may not have the same advantages.
Exactly. And you know what? I don't care what anybody says about their success or anything. It's I don't want to say luck, but it is luck. I mean, not in a supernatural way, but luck just by chance. You know what I mean? It's mostly by chance. You can be.
And really, what do you get out of? And really, what do you get out of? Even if you don't believe in the whole luck factor, even if you believe that everyone has the right to their own destiny and they control their own destiny and where they're at is their fault, where do you get out of just blanketing judging them and just saying, well, they're fucking no goods.
They're weak. They're the weak. We leave the weak behind.
What do you get out of that? What do you fucking get out of that?
Grow out of it, please, because it's an immaturity level. It's a ignorance of how the world works. And I'm glad that those people have been lucky enough so that they haven't experienced what the people they're judging have gone through.
Yeah.
But at least acknowledge that and understand that it's not because of your doing necessarily, because life is unfair to everyone equally. You know what I mean? And the chances of it happening to you is just as likely as anybody else. And I don't want to wish that it would happen to those people, but some people need to check themselves.
Yeah, no, I think it was written. A lot of the rules of LaVeyan Satanism were written with a certain ideology in mind and a certain romanticism.
Yeah.
And
theatrics too.
Yeah, a bit of theatrics, and I think there was a lot of societal pressure going on at the time.
Yeah, I mean, we were in upheaval. I mean, society. Serious battles were going on at that time.
Oh yeah, the '60s was the rise of these kind of movements.
Yeah, I mean here in the United States, mainly. I mean, other places too, but mainly here. I mean, we were having race problems, and we were having.
Of course.
Yeah,
it was a cultural
class problems and feminism, and I mean there was all kinds of upheaval.
Of course, and I think LaVeyan Satanism was it was one of the aspects of that cultural revolution.
Yep.
So there was an effort to kind of stand out. There was an effort to be theatrical, and there was ideology and romanticism taking place.
Yeah.
LaVey really wanted to push the envelope when it came to this system of belief, and so. But some of the things, so smite on one cheek, smash on the other.
Yeah.
When out in the open, bother no one. If someone bothers you, destroy them.
Yeah.
It's not practical.
No,
and
it's
one
not.
thing that Satanism was supposed to be is pragmatic. And that's not pragmatic. Like you can't do that. There's law that prevents you from doing that. Even if you've been putting curses on people and things like that, it's a lot of negative energy to have, and it's not practical at all.
Yeah, and negative actions often result in negative
consequences.
Yeah, repercussions or consequences.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, when you make positive choices, you're more likely. And like I said, life's unfair to everyone, so it's not the guarantee. There's no guarantee. But when you make positive choices and you do things that are proactive and are helpful and tolerant, and you have empathy for people, it's more likely those things are going to result in actions that are positive towards in that way. You know, the response is more likely to be that way. It's not always going to be. Sometimes it's going to bite you in the ass, but don't give up. You know, don't give up. You got to keep
altruism.
going. Yeah.
So the idea that we help others, it's going to often.
And that's why we're here. Is we were evolved. We've got this tribal nature. We're nurturing. I mean, really, if we would just accept that and embrace it a little bit better, it would be good for us.
I think we're finding that the more we move towards collectivism, the more we move to a collective society, we're seeing the benefits that come from that. We're seeing that we're often, they've done studies where people, they do things for themselves as opposed to buying a gift for somebody else or giving or helping out somebody else. And you often find that someone is happier when they gift someone else.
It's a selfish action to help other people. It's actually selfish. I mean,
it totally is.
I mean, get over yourself. You're being selfish when you help other people, but can't find fault with that. That selfishness is healthy.
That's one thing that LaVey had spot on, I think, is that when he said that all acts are selfish acts. Even if things seem to be selfless, there was nothing that would inspire you to do that act. Even if you give your life for somebody else, there's something that's inspiring you to do that, and that is because it feels good. To even give the ultimate sacrifice.
I wish he would have put more of a direction towards that type. I mean, because the selfishness you get from the Satanic Bible is not that kind of healthy selfishness.
It's there's aspects of the Satanic Bible that go into it talks about self-aggrandizement. It did talk about giving value to yourself. But then it kind of has this whole standalone. You're a kind of a lone writer.
And the way that some people are weak and you've got to ignore the weak and leave them behind is not.
I just can't. That's one thing that I've never been able to sleep with is the whole fuck the weak.
Yeah, me too.
Kind of thing. I just don't. I don't know. I've had family close to me that was disadvantaged.
It's not always because someone's weak. Because life, like I said again, life is unfair sometimes.
So are they left behind the herd, and then we either leave them to be preyed upon, or we eat them
by others? Yeah, exactly.
What do you do? I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
No, you bring those people with you. If you're truly empowered, you bring those people with you and empower them also.
How's the saying go? We're only as moral as the way that we treat our poor, or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
The way that we treat our poor is a reflection of our highest
ambition.
I think that if we're unable to do that, if we're unable to take care of those that are most disadvantaged, or find a way to liberate them, then we ourselves are limiting our own liberation.
Yeah, and we're doomed. We're doomed. In the end, you're doomed. I mean,
because they're not going to go away.
No. I mean, it's really, you can't change the way life works. You can't change the randomness of life. You can't change that.
You're going to have these people who are either disadvantaged, or for whatever reason they're not able to acclimate. So what are we going to do? Turn them into Soylent Green? What are we going to do to fix them?
And how many times has that happened? And those were the people that could have saved. It could have been the saviors, or could have been the ones that actually helped you survive.
Yeah, because there's geniuses coming out of those worlds all the time, dude.
Yeah.
It's why we have the genius visa. Yeah. It's why we can take people from other countries, places in the world that have not even a quarter of what we have. These are poor countries, but we have a genius visa, so we could bring over these intelligence guys over here to study. We can take advantage of them for a few years, and then when their visa goes up, they can go back there and then try to use their newfound science, their newfound education to fix their worlds. Yeah. But that exists for a reason. It's because out of, like a favorite poet of mine once said, out of swamps blossom lotus.
Yep.
So out of these shitty conditions, you're going to have people that are intelligent and bright that are coming. So your equation no longer fucking works.
Nope. And if you think it does, then you're just ignorant, Or stupid if you've already been informed about it and still make the same decisions.
Well, if you're saying all these guys in this they're good for nothing and they're not, then how come they're helping to build our technology?
Yeah.
All the shit that you're enjoying, part of it is coming from the study of these people from these shitty conditions. Right. So then your whole zeitgeist is falling apart because it doesn't apply anymore.
All right, Shay, we're out of time, but tell people where they can find the podcast, will you?
So we're at deferredgnosis.com. That's DEFERREDGNOSIS.com. We're a free thought podcast on fringe topics. And if there's any artists or poets or musicians that want to contribute their work, maybe we'll bring them on for an interview. You could just go ahead and hit us at deferredgnosis@gmail.com.
Highly recommended podcast, by the way.
Thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure being on. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Always a pleasure speaking with you, Shay. And we'll text message back and forth later.
Okay, sounds good. Take care, man. Hail
okay,
Satan.
my friend. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Satan's been around for a while. Satan's got a plan.
And there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. I want to thank Shay one more time for hanging out with me. I think it was an interesting conversation. I hope you concur. And I want to thank you for listening and invite you to share the podcast. Make sure that you share the podcast with people who may enjoy it and maybe some people who wouldn't enjoy it so much but deserve to listen. How about that? All right. And you can always support the podcast at modernsatanism.net. There's a link there. And you definitely need to go to the satanictemple.com and make sure that if you're going to ask me about Satanism, you at least do some research first. Because I've had a shitload of people asking me this week why I believe in Satan and how I could do it. And just, I'm sick of answering questions because people are too lazy to do some research. Luckily, I've had a couple people ask me to do some interviews. So instead of forcing our beliefs on people, we are educating people, hopefully, to let them make their own decisions. I think Shay and I made that point, didn't we? Yes. So go to the Satanic Temple. Make sure you support them if you can, because like I've said before, this is an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing fight, and you've got to think about the amount of money behind religion, and the fact is it's going to take money and effort and education for us to get anywhere or get anything done. That's just the way it works. That's the way the world works. I wish it was different, and I wish we didn't have to educate so many people on our own, that they would take the initiative and want to learn and look first, but if they're not going to, then maybe they need a little help. All right. And I've got Satan's work to do, so I'm going to let you go now. Okay? And I'll see you on the next podcast. You should enjoy it. I have a great guest and author for our next podcast named Ivan. And, yeah. Until then, hail Satan.